Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
If you're a facilities manager at a warehouse and your HVAC system goes down, it can turn up the heat, literally. But don't sweat it, Grainger has you covered. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products for all your operations, including warehouse HVAC maintenance. And even better, they offer access to experts and fast delivery, so you and your warehouse can both keep your cool. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And after taking a little bit of a break, we are back to discuss the Orioles' quick exit from the 2024 postseason. And we're going to talk about the bad stuff, but we're not going to dwell on it entirely. We are going to look ahead to the offseason, which hopefully will be an eventful one in a good way here in Birdland, and we will break that down tonight. But first, Orioles on the Verge is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today. Get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. And now, as we like to do at the top of every episode, we want to welcome a new member to our Patreon community. And for that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, thank you to Josh Lynn for signing up for a year at the single A level. Josh is a great member of our Discord, also a great Twitter follow. And also, if you need another reason to sign up for our Patreon, which, even though it's the off-season, still got plenty of good stuff going on over there. Congrats to former guest of the show and host of the Warehouse Pod, Elijah Ginsberg, for winning the Player of the Game tournament or challenge, I don't know, contest that we do on the Patreon-only Discord, where you try to pick the best player of every game, and the winner. I got to put together a prize package for Eli, but it's going to get sent out sometime in the off season. So congrats to Eli as well.
We've had Eli on the show. We enjoy his insights. So please tell me you're not sending him the Yusniel Diaz jersey.
No, I can't. I can't do that to Elijah. To Eli, I can't. But I'll think of something. I'll think of something good.
And one note before we dive into tonight's episode, we are less than a week away from our live show at Checker Spot Brewing. That will be Monday, October 14th. We're slated to begin at about 6 p.m. And we're going to make that episode basically a state of the Orioles. We're going to talk about 2024, but we're also going to look ahead to the offseason, talk about some of the moves the Orioles might make. And we're going to kind of take a bigger picture approach than we are on tonight's episode. And we're going to have some guests on the show. You've already heard us mention that Connor Newcomb, the host of Locked On Orioles, will be joining us. And we're happy to announce that a frequent guest of ours, Andy Koska, the Baltimore Banner, is set to join us as well. You won't want to miss that at Checker Spot Brewing. In addition to talking to Andy and Connor, we will take questions from our listeners. That will be over at Checker Spot Brewing, located not far from Oriole Park at Camden Yards at 1421 Ridgely Street in Baltimore. Once again, that's Monday, October 14th. At 6 p.m. Now, back to the unpleasant stuff. The Orioles division or wild card round exit at the hands of the Kansas City Royals. Coming in, we knew that the Orioles had a lot of challenges. They had not hit the ball particularly well over the second half of the season. They were going up against a team with a very good pitching staff. At the same time, though, the Orioles had a good week to close out the regular season. They were going to have up to 3 straight playoff games at home against a team that they had won the series against during the regular season. It was not meant to be, though, and it was certainly not at the fault of the Orioles pitching staff, which limited the Royals to just 3 runs over 2 games. The offense, though, did not deliver, scored just 2 runs in the whole series, or scored just 1 run in the whole series, coming on a solo home run from Cedric Mullins in Game 2. There were opportunities in both games for the Orioles to come up with a big inning, including bases loaded, no out in the fifth of game 2, and unfortunately they cannot cast that in. There's a lot of emotion around this loss, and that's kind of why we decided to take a week off after the Orioles bowed out early. But Nick, let's just kind of take a minute to unpack what exactly happened. The Orioles had not been hitting well for a few months leading up to the playoffs. But I think it was still a little bit of a gut punch to see the bats struggle the way they did in that series.
Yeah, I think for me, that was just the most frustrating part of all of this, and that we spent all the second half of the season, really, even more than that. But we spent so much time so concerned about the pitching staff. You need to go out and do we get Crochet? Do we get Skubal? Like, how aggressive do you get the trade deadline to increase or to make the pitching staff stronger? You have the injuries that go down with starters, relievers. We need to strengthen the bullpen. There's so much emphasis on pitching. And with hitters, it was just like, this line is going to be good. That's not the issue. Pitching is the issue. And then we get to the playoffs and hitting is the issue. So that was frustrating. The takes were wild. We'll say that afterwards. And I think we hit on this with Connor the last time we were on. Last time we were all on together about, firing the hitting coaches isn't probably necessarily going to do anything. Firing Hyde isn't really going to solve any issues. I don't know what exactly needs to be solved, but clearly, I still think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic in the immediate future. It is what it is. Like the playoffs. Look at the playoffs right now. I mean, we could be heading towards a Mets versus Tigers World Series. Who would have predicted that coming into the year? Not a single person. If anyone out there has a Tigers versus Mets World Series slip on one of those betting sites, no free ads, show me. I'd love to see it because that's an unbelievable win for you. It is what it is. It is frustrating, but it's done. We look ahead to the offseason now and hopefully better things come in the near future. We've got new ownership in place. We don't know what they're going to do this offseason. Let's see what they can do and what kind of build returns to the field next year. Like it was honestly, now I'm thinking about it, I just feel like one of the biggest issues was something that the Orioles just couldn't help. It was the injury variance was not on their side this year. And that's something, again, you can't help. It was really good last year. It wasn't, the Orioles weren't as fortunate this year.
Yeah, you hold a team to 3 runs over 2 games and get swept in those 2 games. It's not exactly a recipe for success. Not going to lie, I think after game 1, I was more upset. But then once we tied it up, Cedric Mullins hits a home run, get the bases loaded, nobody out, and we don't score, then I was pretty much resigned to, okay, it's over. And unfortunately, that was the case. But optimist as I am looking forward to next season because even if we bring back the same exact team and make no upgrades anywhere, I still feel pretty good about this team and have a chance to win the division again next year. It's just a young team. I think that's the one thing people forget is how young these guys still are. Gunnar just turned 23. Kobe Mayo will turn 22, I think, in December. Jackson Holliday, 21. Something like that. These guys are all super young. Even Colton Cowser, who, he swung at a pitch to hit him, but if you look up Pitching Ninja, you'll see why, because that if that was a slider, which the previous pitch before that was, it was going to be over the plate. So no harm, no foul. Hopefully he has his surgery and recovers. And I think these guys are just going to grow from year to year. Gunner's going to continue to get better. Adley, no doubt he was banged up. Maybe not injured, but hurting and lacking his typical numbers from the first half. If you look at Dan Sanchez's Twitter, he does a good job of breaking down the bat speed, decreased in the second half, and other things as well. I think Adley will be fine. Cowser's just going to continue to grow. Holliday and Mayo, we saw the jump Cowser made. Hopefully Mayo and Holliday can make similar jumps next year. But, yeah, coping mechanism is to look forward to next year. Yeah, it was a rough 2 games.
Well, let's talk for a minute about the hitting coaches because the 3 of us defended the Orioles hitting coaches, especially Ryan Fuller and Matt Borgsalty, and you have Cody Assey, who's part of the Orioles hitting staff. I think the three of them have done good work over the last 2 years. And for Fuller and Borg-Solte, that's been over the last 3 seasons at the major league level. And I personally don't feel any different than I did a couple of weeks ago, but Mike Elias in his postseason press conference really did not give us any assurances about the coaching staff, except that Brandon Hyde will be back as manager. Do either of you read anything into that?
Not really. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if there's some slight changes. I'm not expecting much. Like Connor has said, like the message will be the same. This was the best offense in baseball in the first half. And then for a month or two there, you're relying on guys like Emmanuel Rivera, an overmatched Jackson Holiday at the time. Half the lineup, O'Hearn had to be full-time instead of platoon. Like there was a lot going on with injuries, and just a lot of times guys were hitting the ball hard and it was getting caught. So I think a little bit of bad luck. I think in 2023 we had really good luck with runners in scoring position. Not so much the case this year. So those things I think are just kind of luck, or they can vary from year to year. So not concerned at all. But maybe if they feel like someone's not getting the message across the right way, then maybe they can make a shift. But it's going to be the same idea. I think the key is going to be do they make any changes, not necessarily with who's telling and teaching the players how to hit. It's more like, do we not go as all out? They're still going to want to hit the ball hard and in the air, but maybe there's some small tweaks they can make here and there.
Yeah, like what the Orioles are doing isn't novel in any way either. Like multiple teams employ double hitting coaches. Like this, it's not. Again, the takes on the hitting coaches and the manager right after the season, and like fan how you want to fan. Like be extreme. Like if this bummed you out and you were super frustrated and pissed off, like I think a lot of the expectation was super high. There's nothing wrong with that. But like some of the tweets I saw were like legit, like tagging Ryan Fuller in these tweets. He unfollowed everybody. That's not like strictly with like baseball ops people, like with the Orioles or who he's worked with. He unfollowed everybody else on social media because he got sick of it, I'm sure. Because some of the tweets that I saw were mind-blowing. You would never say that to another human being to their face, some of the things that I saw. It was absolutely disgusting. But I think with Michael Elias's comments, like, yeah, like you're going to sit down in the warehouse, in the war room. I don't know if you can say war room anymore, but I'm going with it. You're going to sit there. You're going to evaluate everything. You're going to evaluate the coaches. You're going to evaluate the philosophy. You're going to sit down with the analysts. You're going to sit down and evaluate everything. And if they feel like a change is necessary, then they're going to make a change. Sometimes it's like we've all said 100 times now, it's the messaging isn't going to change, but maybe there is something maybe it's just a different voice that needs to say it. And if that's the case, then that's the case. I do think there will be some changes. That's just natural year to year. Like how often do these entire staffs remain the same? There's going to be shakeups, but I don't think it's going to be a situation where they sit down and say, Ryan Fuller, you're fired because of this playoff performance. That's not going to be the case. At worst, he gets reassigned somewhere else in the organization. Like same with Matt Borg-Solte. Or they decide, hey, I want to move on to a different challenge or whatever. But I envision at least one of them for sure being back next year. Like it like Bob said, it was a lot of bad luck. It was just super frustrating. It's just baseball. Like I think another thing too, you're talking about the young guys. Like yes, this lineup is very young, very inexperienced. I know we said that last year, especially with the pitching staff. Now we're using that excuse with the hitters while we're sitting here, you're watching the other Jackson Churio have a phenomenal postseason, which the Brewers are still in it.
Merrill too.
Yeah, Jackson Merrill, like God, that kid is so good. Like you're watching so many of these young stars just shine in the postseasons for their other teams. Like don't lose the faith in that though for what these Orioles are doing, because yeah, the Padres got Jackson Merrill and he's hitting well and he should be NL Rookie of the Year over Paul Skeens. Not a hot take, but like you got and Jackson Churio and others, like, yeah, they're doing phenomenal things. And it'd be great to see our Jackson do that. It'd be great to see Gunnar do that, to see Gunnar step up and be our Francisco Lindor. He had a great night just before we hopped on. Like that's going to come. That's going to happen. It's the number of guys the Orioles are producing is unlike so many other organizations. Like, give them time. We're seeing these guys settle in and step up, and I think their times are definitely going to shine soon enough.
Yeah, and I would like to say, like, the season was not a success. I think everyone can agree with that. This is not what we wanted. We didn't win the division. We didn't win a playoff game. Bounced out early again. But at the same time, I'm not, like, devastated by it because, again, we are so young and there's still more cavalry on the way. Samuel Basayo is still right there in the minor leagues. We if you listen to this podcast, you know the names, you know what's going to be a successful run here for at least the rest of this decade and probably much longer. So, yeah, be upset, be down, and hopefully they make the right changes to get it right. But long term, still, my view hasn't changed on the organization.
Did you guys read any? I know a lot of people, I feel like, wrote the same article. I only read one, but did you guys read any of these? The Orioles are behind schedule articles, takes right after the season?
No, and I hate them because we were ahead of schedule last year, and now we're behind schedule. What is the schedule? Like, this is insane. I mean, if you even look at it with all the injuries, we still won 91 games, and we're the top wild card. I don't know. I mean, disappointing, yeah, but I don't know about this behind schedule thing.
Well, if you guys, I can pull this one up because I read one this morning because I don't know if I wanted to bring this up. But
could this get Zach's worst take of the season award at the end of the year? We'll see.
If we can run through it, I mean, I don't know if I'm throwing the. I want to know if I'm throwing the outline at the window or not. But
no,
tell
go
me
ahead.
All right, perfect.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley's small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
Let's see. I'm going to pull up Baseball America. This is the only one I read. I don't know. I think there was at least one or two Orioles beat reporters that wrote one. I don't know who else. It was a common take. But here's JJ Cooper's from Baseball America. And I feel like in the second part of the episode, we're going to sing many praises of Baseball America. But this article by JJ Cooper, I felt was, I completely disagree with this whole premise that the Orioles are behind schedule. I think it's a BS take. And in his piece alone, let's see here, some of the reasons, I'm not going in order here, so sorry about that, but it's okay. You still get the point. Some of the reasons he cited for why the Orioles are behind schedule. Playoff attendance numbers. What does that have to do with anything? If you're going to announce game times 1 to 2 days before the series starts, you're playing a weekday games at what, 4 o'clock? Was that every game was like 4 o'clock?
Yep.
How many people can take off work last minute like that? Find childcare, rearrange your entire week at the drop of a hat. Like, Bob lives how close to Camden Yards? How difficult is it for you?
Couldn't happen.
To get to a game?
Would never happen.
I'm 3 hours away. It's definitely not happening 2 days in advance. My wife would laugh in my face if I said, tomorrow I'm going to Camden Yards to watch this playoff game at 4 o'clock.
I wish my wife would laugh in my face if I told her that. Yeah, but like, that was a league-wide thing, too. Like, a bunch of the games in the afternoons had low attendance because, obviously.
Exactly. Houston, I haven't, we were talking about this before. I'm not watching a ton of other games. I'm following along. I did watch the wild card games I watched more of. But Houston, that first game was empty. I feel like Camden Yards is more full than that, but that won't fit JJ Cooper's narrative, so he didn't include all the other empty stadiums. The Orioles don't have the number one farm system anymore. Arbitrary ranking. And there's not going to be the logjam in AAA like there was this year. You're not going to see that top, but there's still, 2 top 100 or fringe top 100 arms in Brandon Young and Chase McDermott there. Bob mentioned Samuel Basayo. If Jed Fabian takes another step forward, Jed Fabian profiles as a perfect fourth outfield type at the end of next season. Like, you listen to this show. If you're regular to the show, you know what's going down in the minor leagues.
Also, Kobe Mayo is still eligible.
Exactly. Like, we're in a perfectly good spot. Let's see here. Yeah, Mayo getting a taste. Jackson Holiday getting a taste. Yeah, they're set up nicely for 2025. Payroll. The payroll's too low. This ownership group they weren't in place until the season started, and just yesterday before they announced all these new hirings, like Rubenstein and this ownership group are still putting their pieces in place behind the scenes on like the business ops side of things. Let them settle in first. They're Gunnar and Adley, they're not free agents after this winter. It's okay. Santander and Burns were the only two. We'll talk about them. There's still a month of baseball left to be played. Can we at least finish the World Series and like see what this ownership group is going to do and see what Elias is going to do with financial backing for the first time ever before we dump on the payroll? That was a lame excuse. It's time for the organization to seek external help for pitching. What organization doesn't need to seek external help for pitching? Like, why is the price tag for arms in free agency so high? Why do you have to trade an arm and a leg to get another arm in return? Like, because pitching's so scarce. Like,
how did we get Corbin Burns and Zach Eflin? And even, God, I'm already forgetting names. Albert
Trevor
Suarez,
Rogers, Cole Irvin.
You traded
Anthony
prospects.
Dominguez, Gregory Soto.
You traded a lot of prospects, and you took on salary. I don't know. Like, the pitching staff, like as it stands right now, you got Grayson Rodriguez, Zach Eflin, Dean Kramer, Albert Suarez, Cade Povich, Trevor Rogers, Chase McDermott, Brandon Young. Kyle Bradish isn't helping the team in 2025. Tyler Wells isn't. John Means isn't. Like, that's unfortunate. But that group right there, is that going to win your World Series? Absolutely not. But I think it's a pretty solid base to go off, and let's see if Trevor Rogers can come do something in the second go around. Let's see what McDermott and Young have. You can still make another Corbin Burns S trade, and again, we don't know what they're going to do in free agency as far as free agent signings. Let's see. Cooper says they won 10 fewer games. They only won 91 games this year. Back-to-back 90-plus win seasons, I think that's pretty good.
How many teams won 100 games this year? I can't remember.
I don't know. I'll
0.
take 100. Yeah. The Orioles were only one game worse than the Phillies over the final 82 games of the season, 81 games of the season. Like, teams were slumping. I think that's it. Yeah, those are all his points as to why the Orioles are behind schedule. I call bullcrap. That was a terrible article. You can grade it.
JJ Cooper does good stuff too sometimes.
Yeah, he's written fantastic articles about the Orioles and the state of this farm system and their draft picks and etc. I don't understand this. I don't understand that take. But yeah, I do agree. The 2024 season, it was a failure. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But there's so many good reasons to celebrate. There's a lot to fix. There's a lot to celebrate. But this team is not behind schedule.
And with that, let's turn the page and talk about what to fix. And thank you for taking that down, by the way, Nick. But let's talk about what there is to fix, because you're both right. The common narrative has been around pitching for so long with this organization. Now, because of the postseason exit, people are starting to talk a lot more about the bats. I have some bad news for anyone looking for a big free agent splash this offseason, which is that it's a pretty thin free agent class. Once you get beyond the Anthony Santanders and Cody Bellingers of the group, it starts to thin out quickly. Now, with that said, the Orioles still have a pretty good farm system. There is room for trade. At the same time, though, for all the ups and downs, the Orioles still had one of the best offenses in baseball. So if you guys are looking at where they need to improve and perhaps rely more on external help rather than internal help, what are the first spots that come to mind?
Offensively, there's really not that many spots, even like that I can see. I think first base is a glaring spot for me where you can make some improvements there. Ryan Mountcastle, love the guy, great dude. Saw he was signing autographs after the game. But unfortunately, he's a league average bat with the above average glove at first base. And I just think between him and O'Hearn, that's, I think, O'Hearn's option. You have to pick it up. Maybe you trade him. Maybe you keep him as a bench piece, DH role player. But Mountcastle, to me, I don't think you can go into 2025. Wow, that's weird. With him penciled in as the everyday first baseman anymore. So I think I would personally look to move him and plus maybe a prospect for pitching, whether it's starting, relieving, prospect, whatever it is. I think you can move him out. And again, you can save like $7 million in arbitration there. And whether it's signing a Christian Walker, who's 33, maybe you can get him for a 3-year deal at like $20, $25 million a year. think that would be nice. Or you bring Santander back and mix him in at first base more often, and then you can keep Heston Kjerstad as well. But first base is a glaring need. And then secondarily, I think a right-handed fourth outfielder would be nice with some pop, maybe like a Mark Canha. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez is like the dream, but I think maybe more realistic is like a Mark Canha type. But that's it for me.
And I love Mark Canha, and he actually played a lot of first base last year. So there we go. I'll take him. Yeah, it is unfortunate to see this free agent class not looking super deep, and it's Juan Soto, it's Santander, it's Teoscar, and that's it. Hopefully, if Cody Bellinger opts out of his contract, but as far as the outfielders, like that's it. As far as the big name guys go, so with the bats, it's like you're not going after Alex Bregman. You're not going after Pete Alonso, probably Paul Goldschmidt. Like he's 37 years old now. He might be washed. Like I'm not seeing anyone else that's going to be able to step in and like make a massive impact. I'm sure there's some names here that could really fit in well. It's October 9th. I'm not diving into the mid-tier free agents to really dive in and look at splits and analytics and everything to decide good fits. I'm just looking at big name star power, and it's not there. And it's why like I mentioned this months ago when we talk about Santander. It's why I'm so adamant about please bring Santander back next year, because like losing that production is going to be hard to fill that void. I don't think you can expect Heston Kjerstad to replace that production this year if you lose Santander. Santander has almost as many home runs over the last 3 years as Heston Kjerstad has major league at bats. Like it's tough to replace. But that's a tricky situation in and of itself, because this is Tony's one chance to get that massive contract, and he deserves every penny. Like, go get your money. And it's that issue of, if whoever loses out on Juan Soto, are they going to then turn to Santander and unload the bag on him and completely outbid the Orioles? This is a corner outfielder with defensive limitations who's about to turn 30 years old. So I could see why the Orioles would be maybe a little bit hesitant. Hopefully there's a win-win contract in there somewhere and they can come to terms and Santander's back. But yeah, as far as like the bats go, you don't really see a whole lot. And even on the pitching side, like there's some interesting, obviously Corbin Burns would be top on the list. I'd love to see him back. Who wouldn't? Blake Snell's there, Max Fried's there. That's pretty much it, unless I'm missing someone else as far as like the aces go. You need the ace. You need to replace Corbin Burns. And I feel like it's probably going to be more so if you don't bring back Burns, and if Blake Snell and Max Fried, you get priced out there, I feel like it's going to be another Corbin Burns-esque trade, which I don't mind. Target the guys that have 1 year left. You get an ace at a discounted price. And look how that turned out this year. Like, I trade Joey Ortiz as much as I love him. I watched a lot of Brewers this year just to watch Joey. I'm trading Joey Ortiz and DL Hall for Corbin Burns 10 times out of 10 times. And then if you can secure that ace, though, and I like this mid-tier of pitching. You're talking about looking for external help, like Nathan Eovaldi, Yusei Kikuchi, who apparently the Orioles were really in on at the trade deadline, according to Rates and Barrels at least. Nick Pivetta, 80 grade first name, by the way. Like, I like that mid-tier free agents that hopefully this organization is going to be more aggressive with this offseason. Trade for that ace again. Sign two of these guys, these mid-tier guys. Bring Santander back. I think you're set up pretty nicely for 2025.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you are going to have to try to backfill a little bit with Corbin Burns, because there isn't a Corbin Burns available in trade every offseason. But I think Nick is right. There are enough mid-tier guys that even if you can't pull off a trade this offseason, you bring in a Nathan Eovaldi, you bring in a Nick Pivetta. Ideally, you bring in more. Eovaldi's probably my top free agent target, knowing what could be realistic for the Orioles. But ideally, you're bringing in another starter with him. And then for the position players, I think the whole right side of the field is kind of in question right now, because Bob is absolutely right. You can get a lot more out of first base. Right field, we don't know what's going to happen with Santander, and I don't think it's a guarantee that they're going to hand the job right to Heston Kjerstad if Santander leaves. And while I have all the confidence in the world in Jackson Holliday, I do think you need to reinforce that floor at second base a little bit. Maybe it's as simple as keeping Ramon Arias around for another year and hoping the player we saw in the second half is what you get for all of next year, because that would be a pretty nice bench player to have. and a good backup, or maybe it's supplementing that with a veteran that isn't necessarily going to take away at bats from Holiday, but is going to be someone you can plug in when Holiday's going through a little bit of a skid, or there's just a matchup on a given night that does not favor him at all.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have a right-handed option that could play second base. So yeah, maybe Ramon really had a strong second half, actually really strong May onward. So maybe that's the answer there. He can kind of be insurance for if there's an injury at third or second base, and he can be a platoon, at least in the beginning of the year with Holiday.
Or, I mean, Jorge Mateo coming back. How much is he going to cost next year? I
3.2, I think, was the MLB Trade Rumors estimation.
This organization clearly loves him. He played a lot of second base last year. He should be a full go. And I mean, he's a right-handed hitter. And let's see, versus lefties this season, his batting average, he hit 262 against lefties. He hit 204 against righties. OPS 799. So he's OPS in about 800 against lefties. You know, I did my thing where I was not a fan of Jorge Mateo, and then, you know, shout out to Andy Casca. He was the main guy there. I changed my tune, and I get it. I don't mind bringing Mateo back, and I think a lot of people owe Ramon Arias, myself included, an apology. Like, he really stepped up over the second half of the year, and I wouldn't hate that at all either. If you just kind of roll with that infield again, and hopefully you've got a healthy Ramon Arias, you got a healthy Jordan Westberg, you got a healthy Jorge Mateo, I think the infield is fine. Except I do agree that Mountcastle, like, I'm not going to be mad at all if you move on from Ryan Mountcastle. I think he's a pretty replaceable guy in the lineup. But
yeah, if I saw a couple other corner outfielders that might be of interest in that right-handed hitting mold, Adam Duvall, Tyler O'Neill. I don't know how much they're going to cost, but I feel like there's some good pop from the right-handed side if you need them. As far as pitchers, I really like Sean Manaea. I think he's going to opt out. He's looked fantastic since dropping his arm slot. I know he's got that Chris Sale comparison, more like a poor man's Chris Sale. He's not quite that good, but I'd love to take a peek at him, see what his price would be on a contract. Luis Severino, like, there's some decent pitching options, much more than the position side. I feel like there was one other name I was going to say here. Andrew Heaney's kind of interesting. And yeah, you say Kikuchi, but wouldn't mind grabbing one of those guys. Maybe you trade for a Garrett Crochet, maybe Heston Kjerstad. If you can bring Santander back, maybe Heston Kjerstad can lead a trade for a Crochet type. Maybe you can extend him, or at least you'll have him for, I think, 2 years. Starting in 2025 compared to like Corbin Burns is 1, but we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Are we still interested in Jesus Luzardo if he's healthy?
Hey, you never know if the price is right.
I feel like there was conversations about that. Like,
Sandy
there was a real connection there. I don't know. I still go back to Seattle too. Seattle has a ton of arms, and I know they're probably going to be reluctant to trade some of them, but like
Luis Castillo.
Yeah, if you're Seattle, I think you almost have to trade Luis Castillo. I mean, you don't have to, but I feel like that would not be a terrible move, and I would not hate watching him every 5 days in an Orioles uniform.
Yeah, I do think you'll see that the Orioles are in negotiations with Burns up to the end. I don't think we're going to be the high bidder, but I think we will be involved most of the way through his market. I think someone will give him stupid money, but we'll be right there.
We'll have a lot to break down over the course of the offseason, and we'll really kick that off at Checker Spot on Monday night. And we're kind of considering that episode to be a state of the Orioles. We'll talk a little bit about what went right and what went wrong in 2024. Try to get answers to some of the questions that I think are most pressing on Orioles fans' minds. And part of that will be we will actually take questions from the audience at that episode. So as a reminder, that is Monday, October 14th at 6 p.m. Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street in Baltimore. Between now and then, we will be back with another episode, and we're looking forward to this because we're going to turn our attention back to the minor leagues for this one. We're going to give out our season-ending awards. You will not want to miss that. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to sign up, become a member of our Patreon community, and you can get a shout out just like our new patron did at the beginning of this episode and have access to a bunch of bonus content and perks over the course of the offseason. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Speth, and you've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.